Today we're walking through a highly personalized explainer focused on Gabby's protocol for epilepsy and severe chronic migraines. If you've been following along, you know she's been struggling for over a decade. We're talking debilitating epileptic seizures, severe eczema, intense pelvic immune flare-ups, extreme chronic fatigue, and chronic migraines that hit an absolute 9.5 out of 10 on the pain scale. Previous interventions, including highly invasive brain surgery and aggressive medications, simply did not address the root cause. So today, we're going to demystify this struggle and walk through the exact biological sequence required to finally restore her terrain. Okay, let's dive into this roadmap together so you know exactly where we're headed. We'll start with Gabby's journey, look at why past attempts failed, break down her big 3 biological failures, tackle the step 0 blockade, map out the 4-milestone timeline, and finally cover how to actually get started. First up, let's take a quick look at part 1, Gabby's journey and her 10 years of struggle. We really have to acknowledge the reality of what she's been through, because this has been a grueling 10-year battle. Back in 2015, Gabby actually underwent highly invasive brain surgery to try and stop the seizures, which meant 2 years of intense physical therapy, literally just to relearn daily living. Then in 2017, a systemic infection triggered a long-term cycle of pharmaceutical symptom management. And yeah, there was a temporary remission from 2019 to 2021, where things like the Dolphin OTC temporarily stopped the seizures, but the root cause? It was completely unresolved. The underlying biological burden was just quietly accumulating in the background. And that brings us to the core philosophy we have to ground ourselves in before moving forward. We do not heal you. We restore the conditions under which your body was always designed to heal itself. This isn't just a catchy phrase. It is absolute biological truth. We aren't trying to magically cure epilepsy or fix a migraine. We are restoring the terrain. Moving into part 2, why past attempts failed and the complete paradigm shift we need to embrace. The harsh reality is that generic approaches fail because they rely entirely on neurological suppression. Whether we're talking about the brain surgery, Topamax, Lamictal, or even the Dolphin OTC, they were essentially just waving away the smoke. They treated the symptoms but totally missed the massive biological fire burning right underneath. They never addressed the underlying parasitic terrain blockade or the specific cellular failures happening inside her body. What makes this protocol so different is that we logically sequence the interventions to put out that fire first. Let's get into part 3, the big 3 failures and the root cause diagnosis. So we ran the assessments, and Gabby's intake scores are incredibly severe. She scored a 9.5 out of 10 for systemic inflammation, an 8 out of 10 for insulin resistance, and another 9.5 out of 10 for energy bankruptcy. Now here's the catch. These 3 failures cascade into each other. They feed off one another in a vicious cycle, which means they absolutely must be addressed simultaneously. Let's break down exactly what's happening with each one. First up is systemic inflammation, or what we call the slow, smoldering burn, sitting at a massive 9.5 out of 10. Gabby's immune system is essentially stuck in a hyperactivated alarm state. It's not localized, it is systemic. This is the biological driver behind her chronic eczema, those intense pelvic rashes, and the debilitating 9.5 out of 10 migraines. And what's really crucial to understand here is that this massive immune alarm is largely being driven by a hidden parasitic presence. Next, we have insulin resistance, the broken fuel line, which scored an 8 out of 10. Picture insulin constantly knocking at the cellular door, but Gabby's cells have gone completely deaf to it. The fuel lines are clogged, so her brain is literally starving for energy while swimming in fuel it simply can't use. This cellular deafness is the main culprit behind her severe brain fog, word-finding difficulties, and those rapid unexplained weight fluctuations going from a size 0 to a size 6. Finally, the third failure is energy bankruptcy, the ATP currency crisis, scoring another 9.5 out of 10. Gabby's cells just cannot produce ATP, which is basically the fundamental battery power of the human body. This lack of charge is exactly what's driving 10 years of insomnia and extreme fatigue. But most importantly for her epilepsy, neurons require massive amounts of ATP to maintain stable electrical resting potentials. When your neurons are completely energy bankrupt, the power grid misfires, and that results in epileptic seizures. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is how we tackle it. Part 4, the step 0 blockade and how we stop the fire. Before we can even think about repairing those broken fuel lines or recharging her batteries, we absolutely have to clear the terrain. Days 1 through 30 are completely dedicated to eradicating the parasitic threats. We use 4 main compounds here. First, ivermectin and fenbendazole go in to paralyze the adult parasites. Second, the egg destroyers, a specific tincture blend, sterilize the eggs so they can't replicate. And finally, binders, like activated charcoal, safely absorb and flush out all that toxic metabolic waste. Now, Gabby should expect some temporary die-off symptoms, like a slight worsening between days 3 and 10. That's completely normal. But right around days 15 to 30, that's when we expect to see the eczema and rashes really start clearing up. Alongside those terrain clearers, we bring in targeted peptide signals. Thymosin alpha-1, or TA1, is basically the 5-star general of the immune system. It coordinates the attack on foreign invaders like parasites while simultaneously telling the rogue, overactive immune cells to stand down. It beautifully drops the pathogenic load while calming the autoimmune overreaction, causing her eczema. Then we have the second part of the peptide intervention, which brilliantly illustrates how we seal up the system. KPV and BPC-157. These two are a perfect pair. KPV directly targets the inflammatory pathways, while BPC-157 works rapidly to physically seal the gut barrier. Why does that matter? Because a sealed gut stops toxic endotoxin leakage, which is basically cellular garbage escaping into the bloodstream. That leakage directly drives neuroinflammation and seizure activity. We are quite literally plugging the leaks that are fanning the flames. Moving on to part 5. The 4-milestone timeline and the sequenced solution. I cannot stress this enough. The order of these interventions is absolutely critical. You cannot skip steps. Milestone 1, covering days 1 to 30, is stop the fire. This is a strict carnivore diet, the step 0 clearing agents, foundational peptides like TA1, KPV, BPC-157, and magnesium threonate. The expectation? Rashes start clearing and migraine frequency begins to drop. Then, milestone 2, days 31 to 90, is repair the fuel line. We continue the peptides but add metabolic signaling compounds. Here we expect the brain fog to lift, weight to stabilize, and a real reduction in seizures. Milestone 3, days 91 to 180, is recharge batteries. We add MOTC and SS31 to rebuild mitochondria. The goal here is energy restoration, resolving that decade of insomnia, and seeing seizures approach cessation. Finally, milestone 4, day 181 and beyond, is sustained maintenance for long-term neurological stability with quarterly monitoring. To show you exactly why sequencing matters, let's zoom in on milestone 3. When we go to recharge those batteries, we use 2 specific peptide signals, SS31 and MOTS-C. The order is everything. SS31 has to act first to seal the inner mitochondrial membrane leaks in the brain. It physically stops the energy hemorrhage. Only after that's done does MOTS-C come in to trigger the genetic signals to build brand new cellular power plants. You absolutely have to plug the leaks before you try to generate new ATP capacity, or you're just wasting energy. So, the crucial point is, how do we actually do this? Part 6, getting started and the action plan. Here are the immediate, actionable steps to get this protocol rolling today. First, Gabby needs to log into the STS research portal. From there, download Dr. Trevor Bachmeyer's animal research protocol documents for each specific compound we've talked about. It is incredibly important to pay close attention to the highlighted areas in those documents. Take those specific dosages and write them directly into the provided tracking sheets. And finally, day 1 kicks off with a strict phase 1 carnivore diet. We're talking only ruminant meats, eggs, butter, and salt. This instantly starves the pathogens of glucose. As she begins introducing these compounds, I want to share Dr. Bachmeyer's uncompromising biological rule. Start low, titrate up. You can't untake something, but you can always take a little more. The documents contain his clinical baselines, but adopting this conservative mindset ensures a really safe, confident approach as she learns to read her body's specific biological responses. Now, we also need to talk about the biological priority check here. This entire stacked protocol is approximately $800 a month. But let's frame this correctly. Gabby isn't just buying supplements. She is making a critical biological investment to reclaim over 6 years of lost health. She's investing right now to avoid the decades of future neurological and metabolic decline that inevitably comes from living with a crumbling terrain. We've walked through Gabby's grueling 10-year journey. We know exactly why generic symptom suppression and waving away the smoke totally failed. And we now have a highly specific, sequenced biological blueprint to clear the blockade, repair the field line, and recharge those neuronal batteries. The science to restore this terrain exists right now. So the only question left is, are you ready to stop waving away the smoke and finally restore the conditions for your body to heal itself?